Commander Maya Washington had survived 3 tours in Afghanistan, led classified operations across 4 continents, and earned the respect of the most elite soldiers in the world. But nothing had prepared her for this moment, standing in shackles before a corrupt judge who had just sentenced her to 15 years in Riverside Maximum Security Prison for a crime she didn't commit. The evidence had been fabricated perfectly. Bank records showing bribes she never took. Photographs placing her at locations she'd never visited. Witnesses who swore they'd seen her sell military secrets to foreign agents. Someone with serious resources wanted her buried, and they'd chosen the most humiliating way possible, sending her to an all-male prison due to a clerical error that would take months to resolve. As the transport van pulled through the prison gates, Maya kept her expression neutral. The other inmates didn't need to know that the quiet woman in the corner could kill them with her bare hands or that she'd memorized the prison's layout from publicly available construction documents during her brief time in county jail. Well, what do we have here? Warden Collins sneered as Maya was processed. Looks like the system made a little mistake. Don't worry, sweetheart, we'll keep you safe in protective custody until we can sort this mess out. Maya said nothing, but her trained eyes catalogued everything: the number of guards, their positioning, the security protocols, the weaknesses in their procedures. 20 years of military training didn't just disappear because she was wearing orange instead of fatigues. Protective custody meant solitary confinement. A 6x8 cell with a steel toilet and a thin mattress. They expected her to break, to beg for mercy, to demand her lawyers. Instead, Maya began her mental preparations. If someone wanted to play games, she'd play to win. On her 3rd day, Maya overheard a conversation between 2 guards that made everything clear. This wasn't about the fabricated charges, this was about Operation Sandstorm, a classified mission she'd led 2 years ago. They'd eliminated a major arms dealer, but apparently, he'd been working with someone on the American side. Someone powerful enough to frame a Delta Force commander. The client wants her to have an accident before she can talk, one guard whispered to another. Make it look like the other inmates did it. A woman in a men's prison, it'll be believable. Maya smiled for the first time since her arrest. They'd made their first mistake. They'd told her the plan. Marcus Diesel Johnson was serving 25 to life for armed robbery. At 6'4" and 280 pounds of muscle, he ran the prison's underground economy. He'd been watching the new arrival with curiosity. Women didn't end up in Riverside, and this one was different from any woman he'd ever seen. She moved like a predator, her eyes constantly scanning, her posture suggesting coiled violence. When 3 inmates cornered Maya in the laundry room, following orders from guards who wanted to stage her accident, Marcus got his answer about what made her different. The first attacker rushed her with a shank. Maya sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and broke it with a sharp twist. The shank clattered to the floor as the man screamed. The second man swung a padlock wrapped in a sock. Maya ducked under it, drove her elbow into his solar plexus, and dropped him gasping to his knees. The third man was smart enough to back away. Jesus Christ, Marcus breathed from the doorway. Lady, what the hell are you? Maya looked at him calmly, stepping over the groaning men. Someone who's been underestimated. Word spread quickly through the prison. The mysterious woman in protective custody wasn't a victim, she was a weapon. Marcus became her first ally, intrigued by her story and impressed by her skills. Through him, she met others: Tommy Wire Rodriguez, a former Navy electronics specialist doing time for hacking, James Prophet Williams, an ex-Marine with PTSD who'd been railroaded by an incompetent lawyer, and Dr. Stephen Chen, a former Army medic stripped of his license due to a gambling addiction. All of them had military backgrounds. All of them had been failed by the system they'd served. And all of them recognized something familiar in Maya's bearing, the unmistakable presence of a natural leader. You're not just military, Prophet said during one of their carefully orchestrated meetings in the prison workshop. You're special operations, aren't you? The way you move, the way you assess threats, I've seen it before. Maya studied the man. His hands shook slightly from his medication, but his eyes were sharp. What I am doesn't matter. What matters is that someone powerful wanted me buried here, and they're not going to stop with framing me. They'll tie up loose ends. Meaning us, Wire said, understanding immediately. Anyone who might have helped you or knows your story. Exactly. Using her network, Maya began collecting information. Wire tapped into the prison's communication systems during his work detail in the IT department. Prophet, whose military psychology training made him an expert at reading people, identified which guards were corrupt and which might be turned. Dr. Chin used his medical access to move freely through the prison and gather intelligence. What they discovered was worse than Maya had imagined. The arms dealer she'd eliminated in Operation Sandstorm had been working with a network that included a U.S. senator, 2 Pentagon officials, and a defense contractor CEO. Her mission had cost them billions in illegal weapons sales. The frame job wasn't just about silencing her, it was about discrediting her so thoroughly that anything she said would be dismissed as the desperate lies of a convicted traitor, but they'd made a crucial error. In their arrogance, they'd assumed prison would break her. Instead, it had given her something she'd never had in the military: complete freedom to operate outside the law. Warden Collins was getting impatient. 3 assassination attempts on Maya had failed, and questions were starting to be asked about why a woman was still in a men's facility. His handlers were pressuring him to resolve the situation quickly, decided to take matters into his own hands. Using his authority, he arranged for Maya to be transferred to the prison's most dangerous wing, a section housing the most violent offenders, many of whom owed favors to guards. It would be the perfect place for an accident. Maya saw the transfer coming. Wire had intercepted communications about the move, and Prophet had noticed the increased tension among the corrupt guards. She had 48 hours to prepare. "They're moving me tomorrow night," she told her allies during a meeting in the prison chapel. "This is it, they're going to try to end this once and for all." "We could cause a distraction," Marcus offered. "Start a riot, keep everyone busy while you disappear." Maya shook her head. Running isn't the mission. It's time to go on the offensive. Maya's strategy was elegant in its simplicity. She would let them transfer her to the violent wing, but she wouldn't go as a victim. She'd go as a commander with a mission: expose the corruption, protect the innocent inmates being used as pawns, and send a message to her real enemies that Delta Force operators don't break. Wire would create a communication blackout at a crucial moment, cutting off the guards' radios and preventing calls for backup. Dr. Chen would ensure that any injuries sustained by corrupt guards would be slow to heal. Prophet would coordinate with the few honest guards they'd identified, ensuring civilian staff stayed safe. Marcus would handle crowd control among the inmates, but the key to everything was Maya herself. She would do what she did best: complete the mission, no matter the odds. The transfer happened exactly as planned. 6 guards, all on the corruption payroll, escorted Maya to D Block, the prison's most dangerous section. They'd arranged for her cell door to be left unlocked and had promised several violent inmates reduced sentences for taking care of the problem. What they found instead was Maya Washington in full combat mode. The first sign something was wrong came when the guards' radios died simultaneously, Wire's handiwork. The second sign was when the lights in D Block went out, plunging the section into emergency lighting. But the real shock came when Maya's voice echoed through the block, calm and authoritative. "Attention inmates of D Block. My name is Commander Maya Washington, United States Army Delta Force. I am not your enemy. The men who brought me here are." In the dim emergency lighting, Maya moved like a ghost. The corrupt guards had expected to find her cowering in her cell. Instead, she found them. Her Delta Force training had taught her to operate in hostile territory with limited resources, and D Block was just another battlefield. The first guard went down silently, his weapon removed and his radio destroyed before he knew what hit him. The second managed to shout a warning before Maya rendered him unconscious. The remaining 4 tried to coordinate a response, but they were dealing with someone trained to eliminate entire terrorist cells single-handedly. Meanwhile, the inmates of D Block watched in amazement as this mysterious woman systematically dismantled their captor's authority. Many of these men had been soldiers themselves before their falls from grace. They recognized skill when they saw it. "Listen up," Maya announced, standing over the unconscious guards. "These men were paid to arrange my death. Tomorrow, they'll come for anyone who witnessed it. You have 2 choices: help me expose the corruption in this prison, or become their next victims." The response was immediate. These men had been living under the thumb of corrupt guards for years, subject to their whims and brutality. Someone was finally offering them a chance to fight back. By morning, Maya had transformed D Block from the prison's punishment wing into its center of resistance. Using her military leadership skills, she organized the inmates into efficient units. Former soldiers handled security and planning. Men with technical skills worked on communications and intelligence. Even the non-military inmates found roles. They knew the prison's rhythms, its hidden spaces, its informal networks. Warden Collins arrived at D Block to find his corrupt guards tied up and his most dangerous inmates standing at attention like soldiers. At their head stood Maya Washington, no longer playing the role of victim. "Warden Collins," she said calmly. "We need to talk." The standoff lasted 3 days. Maya held D Block with military precision while Collins tried to figure out how to spin the situation. The corrupt guards were talking, desperate to cut deals. Wire had recovered enough communications evidence to prove the conspiracy. Dr. Chen had documented years of medical neglect and abuse. Prophet had dozens of inmates ready to testify about guard brutality and corruption, but Maya's ace in the hole was something none of them had expected. During her years in Delta Force, she'd made contacts in every branch of government. One encrypted message, sent through Wire's makeshift communication system, reached the right people in Washington. On the third day, federal agents arrived at Riverside Maximum Security Prison with warrants for Warden Collins, 12 guards, and 3 prison administrators. They also brought something else, Maya's full military record, newly declassified and proving her identity beyond doubt. The investigation that followed unraveled the entire conspiracy. Senator Patricia Hawthorne, defense contractor CEO Richard Morrison, and Pentagon officials David Kim and Sarah Valdez were arrested within a week. The arms-dealing network they'd been protecting was exposed, leading to international arrests and the seizure of millions in illegal weapons. Maya's conviction was overturned, of course. The fabricated evidence fell apart under federal scrutiny, and several witnesses admitted they'd been coerced or paid to lie. But the real victory wasn't her freedom, it was the transformation of Riverside Prison itself. The honest guards, led by Sergeant Maria Santos, a veteran Maya had identified and cultivated, implemented new procedures based on Maya's recommendations. The prison's military veteran population, now organized and empowered, became a force for positive change. Educational programs expanded. Corruption became nearly impossible as inmates and staff worked together to maintain transparency. 6 months after her release, Maya visited Riverside one last time. She wore her dress blues, her Delta Force tab gleaming on her shoulder. The same gates that had once imprisoned her now opened in respect. Marcus had been approved for parole, his exemplary behavior during the D-Block incident having impressed the review board. Wire was teaching computer skills to other inmates and working toward his own early release. Prophet was leading a PTSD support group that had dramatically reduced violence in the prison. Dr. Chen had been granted a provisional medical license and was providing healthcare services that saved the state hundreds of thousands of dollars. "You know, they offered me a promotion," Maya told Marcus as they walked through the now peaceful D-Block. "Full colonel, cushy Pentagon assignment, my choice of postings." "But you turned it down," Marcus said. "It wasn't a question," Maya smiled. "I've got a better mission now. There are a lot of veterans in the system who've been forgotten, a lot of Riversides that need fixing. Delta Force taught me to never leave a soldier behind." The Riverside model, as it came to be known, was implemented in prisons across the country. Maya Washington became a consultant, working with the Department of Corrections to identify corruption, reform brutal practices, and harness the skills of incarcerated veterans for positive change. She never returned to active military duty, but she never stopped being a soldier. Her mission had simply evolved, from protecting America's interests abroad to protecting America's forgotten at home. The powerful men who had tried to destroy her were serving their own prison sentences now, in facilities far less reformed than Riverside. Sometimes, late at night in their cells, they wondered about the quiet woman they'd underestimated. They'd tried to break a Delta Force commander and had instead created something far more dangerous, a leader with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Maya Washington had proven something her enemies never understood: you can imprison a soldier, but you cannot imprison the warrior spirit. And sometimes, that spirit can transform not just a person, but an entire system, one battle at a time. The plaque outside Riverside Maximum Security Prison now reads, "Rehabilitation through honor, dignity through service." Below it, in smaller text, are the words that have become the facility's motto: "No one left behind." Those who know the story understand the deeper meaning. Commander Maya Washington had kept her promise, not just to never leave a soldier behind, but to ensure that no one, regardless of their mistakes, would be forgotten or abandoned by the system they had once served. Justice, it turned out, was not about punishment. It was about redemption. And sometimes, it took a